So today we're talking to Dr. Nicola Nice about some amazing things. Number one, do you know the history of Mother Gin? Number two, we're going to talk about what a gin cordial is. And number three, raising the rope for women, not only in the beverage industry, but for women in your life. Come join us as we have this amazing conversation. Welcome to the Vino Karma project, Dr. Nicola Nice. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you.
You too. I'm excited to dig into the topic today. So let's just jump in. You've stated that you feel women have been left out of the cultural conversation of liquor. Can you tell us how you, with Pomp and Whimsy, are setting out to change that?
Yes, this all sort of started with the question, how many spirit brands can you name that are actively targeted towards a female consumer? And most people who I ask this question of find it very difficult to really get beyond maybe even three. When you think about that as a question, when you turn the question around and you ask, well, how many spirit brands can you name that are actively targeted towards men or even named after men, then the inequity in the brand landscape becomes very apparent very quickly. So what we're doing at Pomp and Whimsy is taking a step forward as one of the first and only brands that doesn't just market to women, but more puts the female experience at the heart of the brand's DNA. So everything we do, everything we think about, from how we do formula development to how we market and communicate, even down to how we run the business and how we fundraise for the business, it's putting the female experience at the center of that.
And so why do you think it's taken the market so long to put the female experience at the center of everything?
I think there are a lot of different theories around this. I think it's very easy to sort of make the blanket statement that the industry in general is male dominated. But when you kind of dig beneath that to look at some of the myths and stereotypes about women as drinkers, there's been an assumption that women don't enjoy spirits as much as men do, that women prefer wine, or that women are intimidated to purchase spirits or shop for spirits, and even that women need men to order spirits for them in bars. And I think what we've seen over the last 10, 15, 20 years that's very clear in the data is that none of these myths and stereotypes are true. So actually, 1 in 3 women actually prefers spirits and cocktails over wine and beer, and that's compared to 1 in 4 men. So it's actually more true to say that men are beer drinkers than it is to say that women are not spirits drinkers. Secondly, when it comes to the cocktail, you only need to take a look at Pinterest or Instagram to see quite what an impact women have as the hostesses of the home, where the vast majority actually of alcohol consumption takes place. And so it's very obvious that women are not only engaged in this category, but are really big creative drivers and, more importantly, revenue drivers for the industry.
It's really fascinating when you put it in that context, because I think it's very easy for people to grab onto that idea when they think about something like the imagery of cocktails, of hosting folks in your home, of being the person who really does have the buying power and makes decisions when you go to the supermarket or the liquor store or your local wine shop or whatever that might be. Can you also share a little bit more about the history of women and gin?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is obviously something that we're very passionate about at Pomp and Whimsy, which is to give women back their rightful place and give people back their rightful place, or women especially, most importantly in the history of gin and the history of the cocktail in general. So if we look at gin specifically, go back about 150 years, and the way that people were consuming gin was very different, but also who was consuming it and how and when looked a little different too. So if we start with the question of how people were drinking gin. This is where Pomp and Whimsy comes in, because what we know about the styles of gin that were popular back then, especially among women, were gins that had been sweetened and infused, and these were called gin cordials. And what we know about gin cordials is that they were very popular with women, and that women were serving them at their social functions, their tea parties that were the precursors to the cocktail party. And they were making their own recipes and passing those on from mother to daughter. Actually, the spirit at one time had the nickname Mother Gin. So what we want to do with Pomp and Whimsy is really pay tribute to that, pay tribute to the style of gin that was popular among women, and in so doing, pay tribute to the role that women have played.
That's incredible. And so can you also share a little bit more about what Pomp and Whimsy actually is and how you're differentiated in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. So it's really easy to answer this question because there is nothing else like Pomp and Whimsy. There's no other gin on the market that comes even close either to the product itself, its flavor profile, or to the way the brand is being positioned and marketed. So Pomp and Whimsy is what we like to describe as a modern cordial style gin. So this is a gin that we distill from scratch in an organic and carbon neutral distillery in Los Angeles. We take a neutral spirit base and we infuse that with 9 different botanicals and redistill it. That's the first part. That's what creates the gin. Then we re-infuse that gin base with 9 more, mostly fruits and other botanicals, let that sit for about 10 days, and then filter it and very lightly sweeten it. So the resulting spirit is all natural, it's low ABV, and it's incredibly versatile. The best way to describe it from a taste point of view is as if Hendrix and Saint Germain had a baby. So it's very different, it's very unique.
I love it. I love that description too. So for folks who like both of those things, it's right for them to go out and try Pomp and Whimsy. And I know you have some exciting things coming up too, which we'll talk about in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about the beverage industry as a whole. It hasn't necessarily been the most welcoming to women or to people of color. What do you think needs to change in order for there to be more access and equity?
So I think that there are a couple of different things at play here. Obviously, you have the broader social forces, right? The social forces that across all industries is having an impact on the way that women and people of color are being seen as crucial assets to industries and to individual businesses. And our industry is no more immune, thankfully, to those social forces as any other industry. And I think we're seeing the impact of those social forces on our industry as we do start to see more people of women and color come into positions and positions of power, especially. But I think the crucial thing is actually, in addition to that, our market forces, right? So we know that women as consumers and people of color as consumers especially love to support brands and businesses that they know are from minority owners and founders. In fact, there's data to suggest, for example, that female consumers believe that businesses and products that are made by women are better quality. They're willing to spend more money. They're willing to go out of their way. And once we start to recognize these economic forces, this combined with the fact that we were sort of alluding to earlier, that women drive most of the household spending on alcohol, is actually incredibly powerful. And I think the more we realize as businesses, the amount of money we're leaving on the table by not taking women and minorities seriously as consumers, then that is just a huge missed opportunity. And it's on all of us to do something about it.
Well said. And are you feeling like you're seeing that shift change now, and that organizations and big brands in the beverage space are starting to take it more seriously?
Actually, like I said, I think the combination of the social forces and the market forces, the issue that they have is I still don't think that they really know exactly how to talk to these audiences, how to really communicate with them in a way that that is authentic. And there's really one big reason for that. And there's a very easy way to solve that, which is just to bring more women and people of color into their organizations at every level. Not only is that going to lead to just better ideas and more innovation, but it's also going to lead to more authentic and more powerful communications as well.
And so what else do you think that the spirits brands need to be doing in order to win consumer loyalty?
I think that's a good question. I think that, our current consumer, whether we want to look at this generationally or just culturally at the moment, is very concerned with authenticity, right? They're concerned with the stories behind the products and brands and services that they consume every day, and that those stories are real, and that the people behind those products, brands, and services and the organizations care more about just the bottom line, and that they have a mission, if you like, that goes above and beyond making money. And I think the more that organizations can tell those stories in a real way, and not just as part of a cheesy advertising campaign, but in a real authentic way, then the closer connection they're going to find they have to their consumers. And I think brands big and small are able to do this. I think authenticity perhaps looks different when you're very big compared to when you're very small, but that's not to say that it can't come through.
That's great. Now, what advice do you have for women who are trying to break into the spirits or into the beverage industry?
I think that the best thing that you can do is to seek out your tribe. So seek out other people in the industry who are in positions of influence or who are just in positions of connection, and make sure that you're finding the opportunity to meet with these people, to ask them for their advice, information, and experience, and most importantly, for another introduction. I think that networking in its kind of very basic sense is one of the best things that you can do, because, I speak from personal experience, and I'm sure you feel the same, that women in particular, I think, are more inclined to want to connect and help and lift the rope. And a simple ask of, I'm interested in getting into this. Is there someone you can introduce me to who might be able to give me some advice? There are very few people who I think would not say yes to that question.
Yes. And I hope that continues. Definitely in my career and with what we do here at VinoKarma, it's super important to help lift other people up and to support underrepresented communities and voices, and to make sure there is a path ahead and people can see themselves in other people. So people can see you and say, wow, she created this amazing brand from scratch. And congratulations, recently got funding and also has some new products coming out to the market. So can you share a little bit about what is on the horizon for Pomp and Whimsy, and also where people can find your product?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with where you can find Pomp and Whimsy. So you can find Pomp and Whimsy online. You can go to pompandwhimsey.com and find our shop site. We deliver to, I believe, 33 states. You can find us in the likes of Bevmo and Total Wine as well. And then you can ask for us in your local retailer. And we do have a pretty handy map that's pretty up to date on our website, where you can put in your zip code and find the closest independent retailer as well. With regards to what we have coming up, I'm excited to say that we have a campaign coming up this fall, which is actually all about the topic, Amanda, we've just been talking about, which is this idea of women raising the rope. It's called the Bee's Knees campaign, and it's raising a glass to the women who raise the rope as we approach Women's Entrepreneurship Day on November 19th.
That's wonderful. I think that's so great. And I can't wait to look out for it and to support you in any way that we can here at VinoKarma. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of tell you a little bit about what the campaign is. So the idea is that we are sponsoring a large group of women to have private in-home gatherings with 4 or 5 women in their lives who have lifted the rope for them in some way. So it's kind of going back through the crossroads of your life and thinking, that person made that introduction or they gave me that piece of advice, and without it, I wouldn't have been where I am today. And having that opportunity to bring those people together and really just pay tribute to them and say, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I want to thank you for that, right? So that's kind of the idea of the get-togethers. And then, of course, it then will spark a sisterhood of the traveling toast, as we call it, as all of your guests will then be invited by us to do the same, right? So maybe they have people who they want to thank. And the idea is that by the time we get to Women's Entrepreneurship Day, we'll have 200, 300, 400, 500 women who have participated in this, who we can all collectively together talk about the importance of raising the rope. And hopefully that will inspire more people to do the same. Because I think it's so easy to sort of overlook how a simple act can really help someone, right? Yes. And it's, it could be as big as like writing the first investment check, or it could be as simple as making an introduction. And, I think the more people sort of think systematically about how they can raise the rope, then, like I said, this sort of idea of all of us coming up together will really come to truth. So
it's beautiful. I would love to be a part of it in any way. I can.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obvious. So, I mean, it's completely open in the sense of, between now and Women's Entrepreneurship Day, have 5 friends come to your house. Don't tell them why they're coming. We will provide, we're sort of providing like, charcuterie and canapes and things to make it a nice kind of get together. And of course the cocktails, and then a favor bag for everybody to go home with. And that's it. That's all that's required, is for you to think of the people, bring them into the room together, and use the opportunity to kind of share your story, and toast to them.
Okay. Do you also have a new product coming out?
We do. So I'm excited to say that we'll be continuing our mission to restore Mother Gin in 2022 through the launch of a limited edition dry gin, Pomp and Whimsy. So this is something that will be available just for a few months. And the whole idea of it is to draw attention to the story of Mother Gin and how we can restore and bring back her crown.
Oh, I love that too. So the other thing we do here at VinoKarma is we ask all of our guests if there's anybody else outside of your product that you're watching to really elevate other underrepresented voices. It could be a chef, it could be a distiller, it could be a winemaker. Is there anybody else that you're watching out there that you think our community needs to know about?
Yes, actually, at the end of 2019, the end of 2018, I was hearing this question so often from people within the industry about, who else, what other female founders are out there, who else are doing things that are interesting, that I decided to create a community around this called the Women's Cocktail Collective. So the Women's Cocktail Collective is a network of women founders and entrepreneurs in the alc bev space. And you can find us on the internet, womenscocktailcollective.com. And there you can read about our 30 or so members and growing of women who are doing really interesting things, everything from the first women Amaro makers to the very first organic craft vodka maker, and everything in between.
That's incredible. So we will definitely make sure people go and check that out. Now, is there anything else that I haven't asked you, or anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, I think this has been a really wonderful conversation, and I love everything that you're doing, and I'm so glad that we've connected, and I'm excited that we are on a parallel mission here. I really do think that we can create the tide that is going to lift all of our ships, and the more we do and the more you do with Vino Karma and everything you're doing for the industry, I really think that we're going to see a lot of positive change.
Thank you so much for that. And we really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to all of us and to share about Pomp and Whimsy and your experiences. And I know you are such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm very grateful that you were here with us today. And we say here at Vino Karma, continue to go out there and create change one sip at a time. Cheers.